Hello. Welcome to Esoterica and Nonsense, a podcast where we discuss myths, legends, folktales, fairy tales, supernatural phenomenon, and religions from around the world. I am your host, Annabelle, Pepperbell, Bananabelle. I'm so happy to be here. I am here to finish part 5 of the long saga of the porter and the woman. This has been a 5-part fucking story. If you haven't listened to part 1, 2, 3, 4, dude, you're missing out. Stop the track, roll back, and listen to the first 4 parts. This is the grand finale. Full honesty, the first time I read The Tales of the 1001 Nights, I read a different version. It was a Penguin Classic version, and the imagery on the front had like a couple sleeping on the floor. That version was incredible, and it was translated by this man who I literally don't remember his name, but he wrote a very thoughtful foreword to the book. And he had been born, I think he had been born in Iran, but I could be fucking wrong. He was born speaking Arabic and eventually studied English in college. I think he went to Cambridge or Oxford, somewhere in England, a very prestigious old school, and studied English and Arabic. So he translated these stories, but in such a fantastic way that were very faithful to the stories. I am also reading a different Penguin Classic translation, and oddly enough, I don't remember this ending being the same. I don't exactly remember the ending, but I don't remember it being quite like this. But that is the beauty of the 1001 Nights, because there are also 1001 variations. I mean, obviously more than that. But I talk about this in the Tales of Palestine episodes, and I want to talk about it again in this episode, as well as like every episode of my podcast. But I think that we forget in the modern world for how long oral tradition was shared. With oral tradition comes variations of storytellers, of regions, of time periods. And as a story can become popular, it can spread all around the world and then have bigger variations. And I think it's something like really sad and important to note that in the modern world, as we write things down and in the sense of like folklore or religion, we do this as a way to what's the word I'm looking for? To preserve these stories, to catalog them. There it is. As we catalog these stories and write them down, in a way, we actually erase the thousands of other renditions and versions. And I think that's something that really needs to be talked more about. And one thing that is troublesome is that sometimes when these stories are translated into English, the person translating may accidentally make reductive mistakes. Perhaps the language that they're translating it from is not something that they grew up speaking. So maybe little words or contextual things they completely misunderstand. Or perhaps the person translating just chooses to omit things For example, the version that I originally read explicitly talked about sex, like all the time. And in this version I'm reading, they allude to sex. They talk about like embracing all night long, and cuddling all night long. But in the version I read, I mean, they were like talking about penetration. So these things are important to consider, more than just from a story and folktale and religious basis, but truly from a multi-dimensional basis in human culture. The legacy of cataloging and writing things down creates this idea that there is one answer, one version, and that this is not really how human experience works, right? And that's something that I find very sad. Also, I think that it is so important to preserve oral traditions, because stories from oral traditions are some of the only preserved history we have of common people. All the history that we research and have been taught in schools is the history of the victors, the history of the kings and the armies and the expansion of empires and the wealthy men who were making large decisions on behalf of thousands, maybe millions of people. But what about everyday people? We don't have access to their lives. We don't have access to their dreams and their thoughts and their fantasies. And what I find so compelling about the 1001 Nights is that it is obvious that these stories are pandering to a group of people that may not have lavish lifestyles. But what's interesting is to hear what their fantasies were, what their ideal meal was, their ideal body type, their ideal romance, like all these things that in these stories, which at first glance just seem entertaining, are actually educating and keep alive an essence. So yeah, those are just some of my musings. And yeah, honestly, I started this podcast because I spent my whole childhood feeling really lonely and really disappointed with school. I really tried so hard in school. And then once like middle school rolled around, I just was like embarrassed. Like no one knows anything that I found valuable. Everything felt very surface level and very what's like non-thorough. Is there a word for like in-thorough? I don't care about wars. I mean, I want war not to happen, but that's not what history should be about. Sure, that's interesting to learn about, but like, what about the women that these kings were married to? I just saw a documentary about Napoleon's wife. It was fascinating. Like, she was his muse, and part of why he kept getting promotions in the military is, one, he married this woman who was classes above him. She had spending habits that were insatiable, so he kept needing to get promoted because he wanted to keep his wife happy. I mean, anyway, that's like a 2-hour documentary, but those are just like little bits where it's like, oh my God, that tells us so much more about a man that we just see as like some military genius. He was obsessed with a woman and in love with a woman who came from more money, came from more prestige. Right after the revolution, he had this opportunity to marry up in class, but also couldn't keep up with her spending habits. Like, this changes the story of the conquest of Napoleon so much, right? And this is what I mean about the in-thorough qualities of the education that we have received. And I mean, maybe this is me being a conspiracy theorist, but what it feels like in my heart is that large global governments purposely don't want us to know the folklore of other countries, and they don't want us to know about local history and the history of common folk. Because I think with some simple research, you start figuring out that for the last couple thousand years, I mean, the last 10,000 years, it seems that civilization has created a structure that depends on exploiting 80 to 95% of the population. And, when you keep it in the fantasy element of, there was 5% of the people that were living fairly safe lives with luscious meals and cool clothes, that's a very palatable history. And then when you learn about the day-to-day life of someone who maybe was like being exploited, and that these things are still happening. And sure, we have different outfits and different music, and now we have cars and TVs and all these things, but on a very real level, how much has the world changed from ancient times? Our social structures and how much we're influenced by the powers that control us. And it seems that the ruling class has gotten more savvy at the PR aspect as the quote unquote commoners have become more interested in our personal rights and freedoms and have advocated for ourselves. It seems that the ruling class has really pulled out all the creativity to keep us feeling pacified as they continue to exploit and poison so much of our planet and so many human individuals, animal individuals, plant individuals. And my last final component that I really think that is a part of this control is spiritual connection. I think that religion has swept the world to a point of it becoming cult-like, and it leaves a legacy of people blindly following religions or being completely uninterested and traumatized. And I personally am sad to see so few people have a personal spiritual connection to what some call God, some call the creator, some call it the universe, love, like so many names. And I understand why so many people don't feel connected to this, because it has been perverted by so many factions of the human race. But both of those extremes, I think, keep people from pursuing a personal experience of what it means to be an extension of the Creator. And there's something about reading old stories and hearing old stories, which in my experience, like stirs something deep within you, like almost like a memory. Because as humans, our consciousness, our DNA it's like a fabric, and our DNA holds all the memories of all of our ancestors. And it's truly like an ocean of experience. And something about hearing an ancient story, even if it's not from where your ancestors come from, it stirs something deep within you, or at least it does for me. And I think, I don't know. that's just kind of what was on my mind today. I'm feeling like I've just been feeling a little bit tender. How just the state of the world and the state of humanity, and sometimes it seems like humans will never really change, and that they're addicted to war and exploitation and inflicting suffering and receiving suffering. And sometimes it seems like this giant vicious downward spiral of addiction. And I don't think that's necessarily true, but I do think that modern humans have progressively taken less and less care into focusing on cultivating a sense of connection to multiversal reality. And instead of guessing and pondering at what happens after death and where we go and where we came from before we were born, these questions can be answered with a life of focus, presence, and practice. But that being said, without further ado, let us dive in to part 5 of The Porter and the Woman. So after all of this, we have heard the story of the 3 dervishes. We have heard the story of the super hot sister, the housekeeper. And now we are going to hear the story of the doorkeeper. This was the woman that opened the door for the porter and the other woman. This is the one whose pussy is named Husked Sesame. Also, I was mentioning earlier that I think I read a different version. I'm discovering now in this version that the original woman in the market who bought all the beautiful, nice things and brought the porter to the house is actually just a servant to these 2 hot sisters, which is super weird. I remembered her being a sister. So the first woman, the beautiful woman in the market who hired the porter, is a servant. The woman who opened the door at the house is a sister. The housekeeper was a sister, and the 2 black dogs were the other 2 half-sisters, right? Okay. We got this. So here we have the story of the doorkeeper. The caliph turns to her and he asks her to tell her his stories. Why on earth is her back covered in scars as if she was whipped? She obliges the caliph and she begins to tell her story. She explains that her father had died and he left a great amount of wealth, which she inherited her portion. And soon after, she married a very wealthy man, a man who was considered to be the wealthiest of his time. She stayed married with this man, but only a year after marrying, he died. From him, she inherited 80,000 gold dinars. She fucking hit the lotto, bro. However, she explains that he had much more wealth than this, but within Islamic law, this was all she was allowed to inherit. That's so fucked. Dude, don't even get me started, but this is triggering. Okay, so after inheriting her 80,000 gold dinars, she is kind of set for life. She is super fucking rich, and her reputation spread as a very powerful and wealthy woman. She decided to have 10 beautiful outfits made, each outfit worth 1,000 dinars. So, as she continues on with her beautiful life, one day she's sitting in her home and in comes this old woman. She describes her as having big, pendulous cheeks, like drooping cheeks, thinning eyebrows, her eyes popping out of her face. She had cracked teeth and blotched skin. She said that it looked like she had just been covered in plaster. She was like ashy and dusty. She had gray hair. Her body was bent over and covered in scabs. Her skin was discolored and she was dribbling mucus. Yeah. Yeah, we're loving this woman. We're loving. So this woman enters this house. She greets the fine lady, this beautiful, rich woman, the woman of our story. And she kisses the ground and she says, "Please hear me out. I have a fatherless daughter, and tonight she will be married. We're strangers to your city. We have no friends. We have no acquaintances, and we are incredibly sad. Please, would you mind coming to the wedding? You are a powerful woman. You are a wealthy woman. And if you were to come, the other women of the city would hear and they themselves would come and we would have a giant wedding party. And my daughter would feel fulfilled and excited to have guests at her wedding." So now the woman starts crying. She says this like little poem that is basically saying, how wonderful it would be if she came to the wedding. Of course, our beautiful friend, our rich, beautiful, haughty, husked Sesame, feels terrible for this woman. She feels so much compassion for her daughter. And she says, yeah, I'll come to your daughter's wedding. That sounds lit. And honestly, I'm hella rich. I can give her one of my robes and dress her in my jewelry and my beautiful shit, she should get married dressed like a princess. Done. But the old woman says, "Please, all you have to do is come. Don't worry about any of that. You don't need to dress her in anything. Please just come to the wedding. And I'll be back later tonight. I'll come in the evening and I'll bring you." So the old lady kisses her hand and she leaves. So for the rest of the afternoon, our beautiful, haughty, husked Sesame gets ready. She gets in a beautiful outfit. She looks fucking hot. And the old lady comes and she escorts her into town. And they make their way. Our haughty brings some of her maids with her. They cover themselves in their veils and they make their way through the streets. They notice. Eventually, they come to a little side street and they see that the street has been swept clean and sprinkled with water, and there was a cool breeze blowing down it. And eventually, they arrived at an arched gate with a strongly built marble dome, which led to the door of a palace. It was erected from the ground. It touched the clouds. And over the gate, there was this little poem inscribed. It said, "I am a house built for pleasure and consecrated for all time to joy and relaxation. In my center is a fountain with gushing waters that clear away all sorrows. Flowers border it, anemones and the rose, myrtle, narcissus, blooms, and chamomile." This feels a little bit sexual, like a sexual innuendo, because hear me out. So the house is built for pleasure, love, consecrated. The word consecrated is often used in a consecrating the marriage, right? Meaning to intertwine, atransar, right? Fucking. And then it talks about the fountain in the center with gushing waters that clear away sorrows. And then we have all the flowers. This is giving sexy, Am I right? I'm not mad at it, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be happening in this palace, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the old lady, our beautiful Husked Sesame, and her maids get to the door. The old woman knocks and the doors open and they enter into a hall covered with beautiful ornate carpets. There are lamps that are lit. They're hanging from the ceiling. There's candles that are in these beautiful candelabras. There's gems in them. There's precious stones. Like, this is a gorgeous hall. They walk through this hall until they come to another room that is of unparalleled splendor. This room is spread with silken rugs. There's hanging lamps. There's rows of candles. And in the center is a couch of juniper wood, studded with pearls and gems and covered with a buttoned canopy of satin. Again, if you haven't listened to the juniper episode, please do, because I'm telling you, juniper is a very, very, very prolific wood of the ancient world. And it's interesting how often that it's mentioned in this book. But in a nutshell, it grows in every continent, and every single ancient culture seemed to use it as a cure-all plant. They believed that it would keep away bad spirits, that it could cure ailments. Some cultures would even huff the smoke of juniper and have full-on hallucinations. They still do it in some parts of the world to this day. The doctors during the bubonic plague would wear those creepy bubonic plague masks, and they would stuff juniper in the nose. Like, I'm telling you, juniper's prolific. So all of this juniper product placement, I'm peeping, you guys. Put that on the record. I'm peeping. Okay. They're in this gorgeous silk hall. This is like the satin silk pearl gem hall. Pearl jam. Okay. So now they're just chilling in there. You know, they're waiting for the wedding to start. And eventually a girl appears. And this girl, sorry, this girl is like beautiful. She has a face that is more perfect than the moon when it's full. Her head and forehead were brighter than a sunrise. They even add a little poem. I love the poems about pretty girls. I'm going to read it. In the palaces of the Caesars, she is a maiden. From among the bashful ones of the Chosroes courts, on her cheeks are rosy tokens. How beautiful are those red cheeks, a slender girl with a languid, sleepy glance. She encompasses all beauty's graces. The lock of hair that hangs above her forehead is the night of care, set over joyful dawn. So obviously, this girl is hot. And when she shows up through this canopy of silk, she greets our beautiful, haughty, Husked Sesame. And she calls her a sister, and she gives her 1,000 welcomes. And then she sits down and she explains what's really happening. She says, okay, listen, I actually have a brother, and he has seen you at a number of weddings and events in town. He's obsessed with you. Like, he thinks that you are it. He is young. He's really attractive. He's deeply in love with you. And also, like, really loves and respects how wealthy you are, how beautiful you are, how graceful you are. Because he himself is also very wealthy and would like to marry an equal. And he wishes to marry you. So he decided to play this little trick so that he could meet you on this very night. And he wants to marry you, like, right here, right now. Okay, this is a red flag. You're gonna get like a crone to come to my house and make up this story about a wedding. And I'm going to come out of the good grace of my heart. And now I'm the one getting married? No. Boo boo. No. We're going to need to see some receipts. We're going to need to see the application. Like we'll put an application in. Why don't you submit your application and I'll have my team review it. You know what I mean? Then we can set up preliminary courting. Like this isn't happening. Okay. But our girl, Husked Sesame, was like, yeah, cool. Let's get married. Oh my God. And so this beautiful moon-faced girl, she's so excited. She claps her hands. She's like, oh my God, we're having a wedding. She opens the door and out emerges her brother, this young man, in the bloom of his youth, immaculately dressed. He has a great figure. He's good looking. He's graceful. He has manners. His eyebrows are like an archer's bow, and his eyes could steal hearts with licit magic. A poet describes him. His face is like a crescent moon, where marks of good fortune are like pearls. Blessed is his beauty, and blessed is our God. How great is he who formed and shaped this man. Alone he has acquired all loveliness, and his beauty all mankind strays lost. Upon his cheek beauty has written these words, I testify there is no handsome man but he. Okay. Am I just fucking sexist? Because when they write these poems about women, I'm like, oh my God, I love her. She's so special. She's so beautiful. And when I read this, I'm like, ugh, he's giving Tool, you know? Like he's giving like, ugh, I'm sick of him. But who am I to say? I'm just saying, I'm not liking this whole situation. I'm not liking this guy. This is smelling weird to me. Like, I think it's time to go home, baby girl. But our girl looks at him. She immediately, her heart melts. She falls in love with him at first sight. Like, yeah, I get it. He's hot. He sits besides her, and they talk for an hour. And after an hour, the moon-faced girl, the alleged sister of this man, claps her hands again. And a door in the side of the room opens, and out of it emerges a qadi, like a priest, and 4 witnesses who greet them, and they sit down and they draft a marriage contract. I'm like, I get it. This is another time. This is another culture. But like, I hate this. This is feeling really wrong. Like, this is not like boo-boo. Let's go on a couple dates. Like, vamos a ver. You know what I mean? Like, let's fucking see, you know? Like, I get it. This guy's cute. You just talked for an hour. Like, this, you know what I mean? Like, let's just see where this goes, bro. And, oh God, okay. So they draft a motherfucking wedding contract. And, right before they are like gonna do the wedding, the crescent moon-faced man, the bridegroom, turns to our girl, Husked Sesame, and he says, okay, I have one condition. Oh no. And she says, yeah, what is it? Tell me. And he picks up a copy of the Quran, and he says it in front of her, and he says, swear to me that you will not look at any other man but me or incline to him. Dude, this is such a red flag. Like, I can't look at another man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I have to live my life. Does that mean I'm not leaving the house? And our girl is like, yeah, cool. Like, this is like a totally fair request. Oh my God. We kind of all know where this is going, I think. So our crescent moon-faced boy gives her a big hug. Their hearts melt. They're so excited. I mean, I don't want to be, okay, no. I'm not going to say that. Okay. So now the servants set the table. They have a beautiful banquet. And as night falls, the young couple retreats to the bedroom where they lie in bed. They continue to kiss and they embrace until morning. I mean, come on. We know what they're really meaning. You know what I mean? Like, they made sweet love, or they went to Pound Town, or a little bit of both. We don't know. They're not explicit. But I would guess that it was a little bit of Pound Town, a little bit of love making, a little bit of awkwardness, you know? But I hope that it was lovely. I mean, a crescent moon with husked sesame. Hello. Hello. So for 1 month, they lived in utter happiness and joy. They were in love with each other. And after 1 month, our girl, Husked Sesame, asked to take leave so that she could go to the market. I hate that. I hate that you have to ask to go to the market. Girl, you are like living your life as a single girl. Okay. So he gives her permission, and she puts on her outdoor outfit. She covers her face, and with her she brings the old woman and a servant girl, and they walk down to the market. I don't really know. Like, I think when they made the agreement, like, not to look upon another man, I think he meant like without lust or something, but that wasn't specified. Like, the exact conditions was not to look at another man. And that's like not clear enough for me, because if she's going to go out in public, she will have to look at men. You know what I mean? But whatever. Okay. So she's on her way to the market, and when she gets there, she sits in the shop of a young merchant who the old woman knows. And she explains that this merchant had inherited his shop from his father, who had died recently and had left him a huge amount of money, and that he had very good goods. So they go into his shop, and the old lady assures her that she's going to find everything that she wants and more. The finest fabrics, the finest imported goods. And so when they get there, the older woman tells him, like, get out your nicest shit. Like, impress my girl here. So the merchant obliges, and he begins to pull all his nicest things from the shop. And the old lady is like, yeah, this guy's the best. I love him. He's like wonderful. And Husked Sesame is like, listen, like, this is a lot. I literally came to the market to get a few things that I need. Like, I'm not trying to go on this elaborate shopping trip. But sure enough, the merchant comes out. He brings the things that she was looking for, and she hands him money. Immediately, he refuses. And he said, like, this is a gift. This is a gift. I will not accept your money. So the old woman says, like, we can't do that. So she says, give him his shit back. If he's not going to accept the money, then we can't accept the stuff. But the merchant is unrelenting. He says, I will not accept anything from you. This is a gift. You have to accept it. But what I want in exchange is a single kiss, which is of more value to me than anything that I own in my shop. Ew, dude, this is so gross. God, this is a triggering story. Can you imagine having to deal with this? You're literally now married, quote unquote, to like the love of your life. And like, maybe you are married, but like, you're legally seen as his property. And now there's a guy who's like, oh, I'm just giving you a gift. How nice is that? Except you have to kiss me. That's not a fucking gift. This is emotional manipulation, dude. Textbook. So the old lady is like, no, you shouldn't kiss him. But then finally the old lady is like, well, you heard what he said. Like, what harm will just a simple kiss do? You know, like, if you can just get everything you want for free, just do it. But our girl, Husked Sesame, is like, I made an oath to my husband. Like, this is just not right. But the old lady persists. She's like, listen, just stay silent. Don't say anything. Let him kiss you. You'll have done nothing wrong. And we'll just bring back all of this stuff and bring back the money. Like, it's a win-win. So our girl was conflicted. She sat there for a while. But then eventually she was like, you know what? Whatever. It's not a big deal. He can kiss me on the cheek. So she covers her eyes. She uses her veil to hide herself from the people passing on the street, and he kisses her cheek. But after kissing her, he bites her cheek and pierces the skin so hard that she faints. Like, what the fuck is this guy's deal? Like, what a sicko, dude. I hate this guy. So the old woman picks her up. She cradles her to her chest. And when she finally opens her eyes, they are now outside of the shop. They're already back at home. And the old lady is like, it could have been worse. Like, don't worry. Like, everything's going to be fine. We're going to tell your husband that you're sick. We'll just keep the veil over your face. And you'll just like stay in bed and just say that you're sick. And I will be like there to treat you and bringing you food. Like, it's all going to be okay. So as she's in bed, night eventually comes. And eventually her husband comes home. And he goes to see her in her bed. And he's like, what's happening? Like, why are you in bed? Are you okay? And she says, oh, I'm not feeling well. I've had this huge headache. And at this, he lights a candle and lifts her veil. And he's like, what the fuck is on your face? Like, why is your cheek has this huge sore? And she explains to him that after getting his permission to go out to the market, she says that she was pushed by a camel that was carrying firewood. And it just, brushed past her cheek and cut her cheek. And her husband is livid. He's like, I'm going to go to the governor tomorrow. I'm going to have them hang everyone who sells firewood. Dude, this guy is like a red flag city. And so she begs him. She's like, please, like, don't do that. Like, don't burden yourself. Like, don't massacre all the fucking, like, wood choppers. Like, Jesus. And she's like, technically, it wasn't their fault because I was actually riding on a donkey. And the donkey threw me off. And that's why I fell to the ground. And, like, the wood grazed my cheek. So, like, it's not even the woodcutter's fault. So then her husband was like, yeah, fine. I will go to the vizier of the caliph tomorrow and tell him to put every donkey driver to fucking death. And so, like, obviously Husked Sesame is like freaking out, and she's like, can you just not do any of that? Like, this is a lot. And she's like, obviously this is like just, a weird turn of destiny. It's like not a huge deal. And he's like, no, this has to be done. Like, people are gonna fucking die because of what happened to you. And so as he gets up to leave, she can't take it. She's riddled with guilt. And so she tells him honestly what really happened. And of course, we would hope his response is like, I'm gonna beat up this creepy guy, right? Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. He's like, you've been false to your oath, you fucking liar. He cries, he yells, he summons the slaves of the house to come in, and on his orders, they drag her from the bed, they throw her in the middle of the room, and they hold her down. One sits on her head and holds her shoulders, one sits on her knees and holds her feet, and the third comes with a sword, and he tells them to slice her in half. He's fucking sick of it. And then he says, each of you can take a piece and throw it in the Tigris as food for the fish. This is the reward of those who betray their oaths and are false to their love. Like, ew. Ugh. Dude, this is like so triggering. God. I just want to like take a moment of silence, and like just like for all of the women who had to live as property their whole life. That's so fucking brutal, dude. Like, this is nutso. This is fucking nutso. Okay, so now this is like where it gets extra crazy, and like it's almost like toxic. Like, he basically recites this poem of like, I was betrayed, like there's no good in love that is opposed. And so then they have like a poem off, so then she says a poem that she was like a slave to love, and like her union turned away from her, like all this shit. And he's like, oh yeah, like you abandoned me and my love. And they're literally like having a poem off. I'm telling you, this is like real life. And I'll spare you though, like it's just so, it's like, it's giving toxic relationship, this poem off. And at one point she even says like, right upon my tomb here lies a slave of love. It may be that a sad one who knows love's pangs will pass this lover's heart of mine and feel compassion. Like, oh my God. Stop being loyal to this guy. This guy sucks, dude. You were emotionally manipulated by a creepy guy at the market, and now your husband wants to murder you. Like, this is so crazy. Ew. Okay, so they just keep having this poem off. And he actually gets more angry. Her poems are all along the line of like, no matter what you do to me, like I'm still gonna be in love with you. And he just gets more angry, like typical. I mean, he also makes like a comment about like not worshiping more than one god. Like she doesn't mention not. It's so weird. Okay, so after this like little poem battle, he finally shouts to one of the slaves. He says, "Cut her in half. Like, let's fucking throw her away. I'm sick of her." And one of the slave who was about to kill her asked her if she had any last words. And before she could utter them, the old woman chimes in and she says, listen, my son, I have brought you up. I have served you. And I beg of you to spare this girl, because we all know, I mean, this is like a Chekhov's gun situation, but she says, I'm very fearful that you commit this great sin, because every killer is killed. I mean, I'm not mad at that. His response is, what is this slut? Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're still on the dialogue of the old woman. The woman says every killer is killed. And then this old woman says, what is this slut? Cast her away from you. You don't need her. Cast her from your mind and from your heart. Can I remind you too that this old woman was the one that was like advocating for this guy to kiss her on the cheek? Like, this old woman is the worst. God, this is like, this story is like really triggering me. Like this is like, I don't know. This is like loaded in like crones being evil and men being evil. Like, this is all sensationalized, but whoa, it's really getting to me. Okay. So the old woman cries, she begs, she says, please, like, don't kill her. Don't do this to yourself. Don't commit this like unbreakable sin. And finally, the crescent moon face boy is like, fine, like I'll spare her life, but like I'm going to mark her for life so that she'll always have to remember what she did, which is let a man bite her on the cheek. Like, ew. So he has her dragged off and her stripped, and he gets a rod from a quince tree and he beats her to the point of her losing consciousness. Dude, this is so sad. So at that point, he instructs the slaves to take her back to the house in which she came from and to throw her there. So they did what they were told and they left. The next morning, our girl finally awoke from her state of unconsciousness, and she spent the next few months, technically I think Yep, 4 months. She took 4 months to stay home and heal herself. She rubbed herself with salves. She took medicines. And she literally just had to lay in bed and care for herself until she was cured. This is so horrible. So she then, after she had healed, she walked back to the house in which she had lived with her husband. And she found there that the house had been destroyed. It had been ruined and reduced to a pile of rubble. And she could find no evidence or no story of what had happened to the house. So with that, she walked to the house of her half-sister, and she found her half-sister there with 2 black dogs. She greeted her sister. She told her her story and what had happened. And her sister said, "I'm so glad that Allah has brought you back to me. Of course, there's a place for you in my home. I cherish our sisterhood." And she says, "This is how time acts. So show endurance, whether you be stripped of wealth or parted from your love." And then after that, the beautiful elder sister told her her story and what had happened with her other 2 sisters that had been turned into dogs by the Lady Jinn. And there the 2 of them lived. They did not consider marrying again. Good. And eventually they were joined by their beautiful lady servant who did the shopping for them. She moved in with them, and she would go out each day to buy what they needed from the market. And their life continued on like this, living with wealth and luxury until last night, when their woman employee had gone out as usual, as she had done every day. She had brought back the porter, and he had stayed. And of course, in the middle of the night, the 3 dervishes arrived. And after the night had passed, the 3 other men, obviously the caliph and his advisors who were undercover, and all of this had led to these men overstepping their boundaries and asking why the fuck they were whipping dogs and why they had the scars on their back. And that, she says, is my story. The caliph is stunned. He's like, "Oh my God, this story was fucking brutal." Like, damn, that's like that literally is such a brutal fucking story. So the caliph, his jaw dropped, and he tells his scribes to write all these stories down and place it in his archives. And eventually he turns to the most beautiful sister, the eldest sister, the keeper of the house. And he asks her if she has ever encountered the Lady Jinn, the one who had bewitched her sisters. She explains that she had not seen her since the incident, but she had given her a lock of hair, and that if she ever needed to summon the jinn, all she would need to do is burn a single hair, and she would be summoned immediately. So the caliph asked her to bring out this lock of hair. She did, and she gave it to him, and he took a single strand of this hair and he burned it. The room filled with this burning smell like incense, and almost like there was an earthquake, the palace shook. And with the sound of thunder, manifested the Lady Jinn. She says on arrival, "Know that this girl sowed the seed of gratitude for a good deed that she did for me, for which I could not repay her, when she saved me from death and killed my enemy. I then saw what her sisters had done to her. At first I wanted to kill them, but I was afraid that this might distress her. So then I thought that I should take revenge by turning them into dogs. she then explains that if he so wishes, she can set these sisters free and turn them back into humans. And she also explains that if he so wishes, she can begin to investigate the story of the second sister who was beaten by the crescent-faced boy. And she says that if it finds out that her story was true, she will avenge whoever wronged her. So the Caliph says, yeah, please transform the two sisters back into humans, the two black bitches. So the jinn obliges. She takes a bowl of water, she casts a spell over it, and she recites words in a language that is not known to humans. She sprinkles the water on the faces of the two dogs, and she says, return to your former shapes as humans. And immediately they do. And then she turns to the Caliph and she says, the man who beat this young woman is none other than your own son, Al-Amin. He heard of her great beauty and he set a trap for her. But he married her legally and was within his rights to beat her, as he had imposed a condition on her and got her to swear a solemn oath that she would do nothing to break it. Ugh, gross, whatever. However, of course, she did break this oath, and he was going to kill her, but for fear of God, he beat her instead and sent her back to her own house. So the Caliph hears this and he's like, what? Like he realizes his son is the one that did all of this. And he said, glory be to Allah, the exalted, the omnipotent, who has granted me the favor of learning this girl's history and rescued these two from sorcery and torture. And so he says, I'm going to right all of these wrongs. Like I'm going to play matchmaker and fix all of these problems. So he summons his son and he questions him about the circumstances. And he then summons his qadis, his priests, his notaries, and he decides to pair everyone up. So he gets the three dervishes. He pairs one of them with the woman who I thought was the sister, the woman who does all the shopping for the sisters, and the two sisters who had been turned into dogs. He pairs these three women with the three dervishes, as these dervishes were actually once kings of their own kingdoms. He gives all of them jobs. He gives them houses and allowances, and they are living a beautiful life there in Baghdad now as couples. And then finally, he turns to the eldest sister, the pure-hearted sister, the most beautiful sister, the keeper of the house. And he decides to marry her. And with the last sister, the sister who had been beaten by his own son, he drafted a new marriage contract and ordered that all of her wealth be returned and that they stay married and rebuild their life back to its original splendor. I don't know if that's a happy ending, but okay. And so, as I said, he marries the keeper of the house. And that night, they sleep together. They obviously have some beautiful, sexy time. And the next morning, he gives her her own chamber amongst his concubines. And together with servant girls and regular allowances, they live as now part of the oppressors. I mean, yeah, that's in a sense, this is a happy ending, but kind of not. Like now they all like went through all these hardships and now they're just the oppressors, but I get it. Of course, all the people of the city are astonished with the generosity and wisdom of the caliph, and he orders that every single detail of all these stories be written. And that is the end of the porter and the woman. But like, hear me out. Like, this is why these stories are important, because like, I don't think I could have told you what the ambitions or fantasies were like of anyone in this part of the world a couple thousand years ago. And now I do kind of have an idea, you know, like everyone just wants to like be married to a caliph or some king from another land. And then you get to be the owner of servants. Ain't that some shit? Oh, it's so interesting. I love these stories. Okay, well, I think what we'll do, we're going to take a break for now, because I know we just did a 5-part episode, so we're going to diversify the content. But you best believe that eventually we are going to be circling back, because we do need to cover the 7 journeys of Sinbad. Oh my God, they're so fucking good. They're so good. Also, if you are a fan of this podcast, please subscribe. Please comment if you can. That really helps. If you have a topic that you want me to cover, email in at esotericaandnonsense@gmail.com. Or you can just email in to say hi. I appreciate you so much for listening. I also have merch that is live. It is in the description of this podcast. We're all just trying our best out here on planet Earth. I guess it's always been a wild ride. So I invite you to have as much fun as you can, be as kind as you can, because treachery lives on forever, and no one wants to be the guy who is treacherous in the story. You know what I'm saying? Be the nice, beautiful sister who gets to marry the caliph at the end. She was always nice to all her sisters, and she ended up having the wealthiest, the steadiest amount of wealth, and the richest man in the end. So I guess that's the moral of this story. Be super hot and be super nice and virtuous. And with that, I bid you adieu. Over and out.